And welcome back. We are live with Black AI Media. I'm Cedric Scott Jr., and we are here for another amazing interview and episode of The Road to 100. In this episode, I think I'm going to learn some stuff. I'll say that. But we have Kate Carter, who is here to speak on her work, which we're going to get into healthcare. We're going to talk about your PhD focus. We're going to talk about some of the other projects you're working on, collaborations and partnerships, and all the things. And major shout outs to you and an awesome Wu-Tang t-shirt. So if you're listening and you can't see this, you missed out. But I want to really quickly just open up the floor to allow you to come in and introduce yourself to the listeners, and then we'll dive into some of the questions.
So honored and excited to be here. I am Kate Carter, and I used to play roller derby, and my roller derby name was Cream Nefertiti. And Cream, of course, was taken from Wu-Tang. And my team was the Furious Truck Stop Waitresses. And so I was mixing African heritage and hip hop and all things that make me me. And so I am passionate about hip hop, but I am very passionate about AI, and I am excited to be here to talk all about it.
Appreciate it, and I'm glad to have you. And I'll start with our kind of major driving question that we're asking everybody in these interviews, which is as it pertains to AI technology, where we are, especially in our community, what does narrative mean to you?
For me, narrative is really blending everything that I've done thus far. So I have studied blockchain, technology, and cryptocurrency, and I've worked in healthcare, and it is bringing that story, that continued story together to amplify what I feel is really important, which is our voices as in Black people, our voices as in female, to this technology, as well as educating women and people of color about this technology. Because without that education component, we are often fearful of the technology and how powerful it is, but also how we've been misused in the past and mistreated. And so narrative is really bridging that journey and then letting it unfold so that people can come behind you, right? And then elevate even further.
That's awesome. And you use the word journey there, so I actually want to go into that a little bit. Can you actually tell us a little bit about your journey as it relates to tech and artificial intelligence in particular? Like, how did you get started and what led you to where you are today?
It's not been linear. And to most people, it probably wouldn't even make sense. To me, it makes total sense. I've had an amazing life up until this point, right? And I really feel that it's been an adventure. I am a kind of person that says yes to opportunity. Um, and I'm not fearful of mistakes or what could go wrong. It's like, this sounds exciting, let's go for it. And so I don't come from a technology background, I would say, at all. I did study media actually in undergrad, and then I had an opportunity to go teach English in Japan. So, right after undergrad, I flew to Japan and lived there for 2 years, which was eye opening to the US and our customs and cultures, but also to another country's custom and cultures, and just made me really reflect on what I held dear to my heart and valued. And if you have not been to Japan or know nothing of it, they are very far advanced in technology. So even way back when I was there teaching English, I was in awe of the cell phones they had and the vending machines and the technology that wasn't here yet. And so they were very far in advance. I definitely took notice of that. When I returned to the US, again, not a straight path, right? I ended up marrying an individual that worked in the music industry, and I had the opportunity to go on tour for 6 years. So it opened my world. I've been to 33 countries so far, but just really allow me to see and meet people and see what drives us and see what motivates us and see how we are so connected more than we are not. And maybe that's just hip hop culture, right? So like, no matter where you're from, if you're into hip hop, like you have something to vibe about and connect with. But again, eye opening. Like, what are emerging markets doing? What is it like in Ethiopia? Like, I could not believe when I landed in Ethiopia that there was individuals asking me, where do I live? And they knew my senator here in Arizona, because I didn't know much about Ethiopia other than Haile Selassie, right? Like, I'm like, how do you know John McCain's name? That is mind boggling to me. But it's these unique moments that I've had in my life that have just led me to where I am, which is now I work in healthcare. I do physical therapy with kids with special needs, and I am getting my PhD in artificial intelligence with an emphasis on with AI in healthcare with equity. And I think I'm going to study pain management, chronic pain management, and look at how people like us are often untreated or undertreated regarding pain management, and how these solutions can either amplify what's our current conditions, or decrease and make the healthcare system better and make our whole health better as a population. So I'm really passionate about it, because I think there's great opportunities. But if we're not coming with that lens of we need to have inclusive data sets, and maybe all the standardized testing that has continued to exist doesn't work for everybody, then we're missing out. We're missing the mark. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be on this road.
Wow. So much to unpack. I
I
definitely
know it's
want
so
to.
random. Like, it doesn't make sense
Well,
at all.
well, it's interesting just considering pathways and trajectories and things like that related to, I think, for a lot of us, where we are and where we kind of end up and where we begin. Because even for myself, background in science, went into education, so on and so forth. So it doesn't necessarily seem as far fetched, but what I'm hearing is that you've been able to take those components, those kind of hodgepodge pieces, and begin to construct a broader scope vision, or they put this puzzle together, and it actually starting to look like it looked like an image that is recognizable in a way. And I actually wanted to backtrack just a little bit, and this is not necessarily in my subset of questions, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tap into this component and piece that you shared, which is travel, and the importance of engaging and indulging in other cultures, taking opportunity to learn more so about the world, stepping outside of ourselves while still remaining respectful and understanding of ourselves and who we are, where we come from, whether that's, Black people here in America. And then of course, you go anywhere. And as you mentioned with hip hop culture, like it's just kind of like this, like we know what it is, right? Like you go anywhere in the world and you hear the music and it's like, oh yeah, like I understand this. And there's a clear distinction there. Can you tell us just a little bit about, within your travels, what type of experiences do you think really added to the scope of influence, of perspective that you have in terms of where you're going, the things that you're doing, and really thinking about, well, how has that positioned you in your mindset and mind frame in terms of what you're doing, I guess, when it comes to AI, when it comes to technology, and the things that you've shared with us in terms of your vision and goals?
Yeah, I think the common thread with everything that I've done in life has been people and connection. And as I travel, of course, I want to see the tourist, I want to see the Eiffel Tower, but I also want to visit the local grocery store, and I want to meet your grandma, and I want to see how you live, because I don't think that one way is right or wrong. It's just a learning opportunity. And what I have found is most people around the world literally just want that. They want to be able to wake up, have their family, go to work, contribute, have days off, have the vacation, if that's even an opportunity. And if it's not, they just want to live like in peace. And most people are warm and welcoming. It is the media machine that can sometimes tell a different narrative. And while I have traveled, I get the opportunity to sit and reflect. And when I, like, for example, when I was in Uruguay, and I'm sitting there and I'm just people watching, because I like to people watch. And when you have the liberty and freedom to take a walk in the afternoon, you know that things are okay. There are so many people around the world that are just struggling, right? And the opportunity to say, like, hey, I want to take some time out for myself, for my physical body, for my mental health, and take a 15-minute walk. When you're in neighborhoods like that and you can see that taking place, you know that, okay, this place is obviously safe enough to walk around. It's typically usually clean, because why would you want to walk in a place that's not? And so it's that component, and then the ability to access healthcare. What we have, this weird misconception here that, oh, we have the best healthcare system, and oh, the best this and the best that. But I have had easier times accessing healthcare in emerging markets, or what you might consider a third world country, than here in the US. We are absolutely getting robbed, and it's shameful. We're driven by profit here. And I think that there are other countries that do a great job at protecting their citizens, whether that be they have the same kind of garbage products that we have, like fast food consumption stuff, but they don't allow all the toxic chemicals by law, right? They don't allow those medical pharmaceutical commercials to be on repeat so that your brain waves take it in. And so that's what it's taught me. It's taught me that we are so much more alike than we are different, and that if given the opportunity, really we just want the luxury to be able to be safe, to be in a clean place, and have access to basic necessities: education, healthcare, and then a job, a good paying job. And when you strip those things away from people, when the turmoil and the ugliness comes in. Like when you're fighting for survival, which so many people here in the US are, or in other emerging markets are, just fighting for basic survival. It's unfortunate because it's not necessary. I don't believe in scarcity, right? Like there's enough water, there's enough food, there's enough, all of the things that we need. It's just about allocation. And for some reason, we are horrible at allocating. And yeah, it's taught me that people are connected. We are way more similar than we're not. And what have valued the most is taking the unbeaten path, like going down the cobblestone pathway and discovering a little shop. And yeah, and just meeting people where they're at and respecting something that's different than what I'm used to, because it doesn't need to look like what I grew up with or what I know. But yeah, people, we're all people, we're on the same journey, we're not going to leave here alive. And so the better we are at working together, even if we have differences, the better it is for everyone. I hope that
Yeah, no,
answered.
that was amazing. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of components to that you can tap into. Like, nobody gets out alive. That's a that's a kind of a given. And I think within that, I think what's really important to highlight is the viewpoint that you have when it comes to people, right? Because and shout outs to you. My wife has been a special educator for, I mean, since before I met her, and I've working in education, and you meet different people. It's just a lot of variety, and definitely when it comes to, just as you said, meeting people where they are, right? That's not just children or youth. That's adults. That's
Yeah,
people on the street. That's anybody you encounter. With that, would you say that then, I guess, simple, simple answer to a potentially complex question, in terms of what you're working on now, right? Your PhD focus, and then even the work that you're doing professionally in AI, would you say that people are your primary driver and motivation for the things that you're doing?
absolutely. Every patient encounter that I've had, you walk in that room, like I know that probably other therapists walk in the room like, okay, I have this idea, we have a treatment plan, we have this goal to meet, but I walk into the room like, what am I going to learn from this person? Because some, like my oldest patient I've ever treated is 104 and was a woman. And so to be on this planet 104 years, to know that they have seen the civil rights, the women's rights, like they have seen so much change, I'm like, tell me about it. Like, tell me about it, why we're working on balance. Because to me, you're the greatest source possible, right? Like I could read a textbook, but you might have been there, and maybe you were on the other side, and I would have been yelling at you had I been there at that moment too. But I still can learn from that moment. And as well, I work in healthcare, but I also work at a startup called Mia AI, and it stands for Mission Impact Academy. And our mission is to equip and empower 1 million women around the world with AI. And there, I'm head of program, so I'm designing all of our educational content. That comes first as well, because people are joining our platform, joining our online courses from all around the world. And if you don't know, every country is doing something different when it comes to AI. Some countries are doing a more protective stance. Some, like the US, are like, let's just go all in and see what happens. And so it is so interesting to see what Peru is doing, or what is happening in France, or what tools are accessible in Canada. And so we have this common goal. Let's learn some AI literacy, because every single country, every single career, I believe, will be impacted by artificial intelligence in some form or fashion. That said, they too have something to give. They're coming to learn AI skills, but they're also coming with their life experience and that country's culture and laws and regulations that are taking place or have not taken place yet. And so it's an opportunity to maybe realize, like, hey, this country is really doing a great job. Maybe I should be fighting for that here in my state, or maybe I should be fighting for regulations like that here in my country. Like, how am I going to protect my child from deep fakes and revenge pornography that is happening in real time, right? What is my stance on surveillance cameras? Do I want that in my city? I don't know, maybe I do. But when you have somebody that's experienced that in their realm, they can shed light on what that experience was like, and I can either take value in it, like, absolutely, I need to protect myself, educate myself more, or educate my community or states. So yes, it's people is that common thread. And I think the opportunity to learn, like, we have an opportunity to learn from each other, even if we haven't had a genuine shared experience. We're having one right at this moment, right? So you just take it from there.
I 100%, 100% agree. And well, I also wanted to mention, this is off track. Your video is a little blurry, just a little bit.
Oh,
I
let me
just wanted to mention it.
turn my Wi-Fi off. It might help. You look clear
I
to
just
me.
didn't want it to stop. Thank you.
Even with my kiddos with special needs that I'm treating, the
Mhm.
I'm going in like, oh, I'm going to help this person. Like, no, I've learned so much more about spina bifida and cerebral palsy, and the need for wheelchair accessibility in stores, and visual aids for my individuals that are visually impaired and blind, that I would ever know. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for just being able to sit with them every single week. And I know that, yes, we're working out and we're helping them with what they need, but no, it's just been such an amazing opportunity to learn from them.
And that's extremely, I think, important, as well. Just thinking about, as you mentioned, listening and learning from people regardless of where they are. And I kind of have a saying for myself that I believe that there are two particular groups in society that we actually don't listen to enough, which are children and elders.
100%.
And I think if we can tap into because it's like, oh well, their time has passed, they don't know what they're talking about. And then it's for children, oh well, you're not old enough to understand, you don't know what you're talking about. And then the people in the middle, my age bracket for sure, is kind of like, well, we know everything. And it's like, well, questions around lived experience and also choices and decisions that you've made, and how much have you learned. So I also heard an elder mention one time that you don't get to be my age being stupid, which I completely agree and concur with
Oh
as
no.
well. I wanted, yeah, right, exactly. I was like, that's pretty good. But I wanted to dive back in thinking about the efforts that you're putting in now, the work that you're doing, the steps that you're taking. Was there a defining moment in your career, or I guess even in your life and your travels, when you realized that, hey, I can really make a massive impact in this space whenever it comes to technology, and AI, as far as that landscape?
Mm, a defining moment. It'd probably be during the COVID lockdown. So I was in the trenches during the COVID lockdowns, because physical therapy was such a component, important component to rehabilitation. Like, I mean, it hit people really hard. And so this was a time when like loved ones couldn't visit, right? And we're like knocking on the windows, or like you had to pick up the phone and help call family members. And yeah, I just, it was eye opening in the sense of the world is shutting down. And what is this disease? What is it even? What is it? And what does it mean? And my path, working with elderly patients, working with geriatric population, and looking at my trajectory and my path, and looking at when retirement is, and really looking at myself saying like, Kate, if we don't do something different, like you're not going to be prepared for retirement. So it was this kind of self-absorbed like ego moment where I had to say, if I don't do something now, I will not be prepared for retirement. And so that's what led me back to school, where I have two masters. The first one is in applied leadership and management, which opened me up to the umbrella of the fourth industrial revolution. So blockchain, crypto, AI, NFTs, like the theory around it. And then because I am thirsty for knowledge, that just continued. So my second master's is in blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And I realized that blockchain and crypto could elevate and enhance my own position, economic status, but as well as people of color. So I went all in and I taught myself how to day trade. And then I opened up an account uh, in a foreign country and began day trading, because I saw that this is a way for success, for financial success. And then that just continued into artificial intelligence, because I realized that blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, can drastically enhance and improve the healthcare space, something that I'm very passionate about. And I think ultimately my goal while I'm on this planet is to be the change you wish to see. Like, I want to make a difference, a positive difference, by the time that I am gone. And so everything that I do is for that reason, is to make a positive difference. And so that knowledge just led me to more knowledge, which led me to more knowledge, right? So I invested in myself, which then allows me to invest into others, which I think is why I'm working at MIA to help educate women, which is why I do physical therapy, but in essence, you're teaching someone, right? You're teaching them about their body. You're teaching them about exercises that they could do or shouldn't do to help their body or their condition. So it's all about education and investing, because if you don't invest in yourself, then no one's going to do it for you. No one, like, even if you're given handouts, you don't usually appreciate them because it was just given to you. And so when you work for it and you invest in yourself, that's something that can't be taken away from you. And you're just more likely to succeed as times change, because times are changing. That's one thing I can guarantee, that nothing is for sure, right? COVID happened, like we had no control. AI is coming, it's happening, and you won't have control. And so the more you invest in yourself and you have that knowledge, the more you can control your situation and put yourself in a place that is hopefully safe for yourself and for your family.
Yeah, let's say information changes the situation, right? And I think leaning into some of the things that you mentioned related to, the COVID lockdown, uh, the work that you're doing as far as physical therapy, but also in the educational scope and sphere across all contexts of your work. We do know, right, that this is happening. It's here. It's moving. And with that, you mentioned also investing in yourself and taking the time to, build yourself up, right? Build your own capacity and understanding in this so that you can actually do the work that you intend to do in support and in service to others. I'm curious, within that, which is all amazing and of course extremely noble, have you found that you've come across like unique challenges that you've had to face in your work and in your pathway and in your growth, and just in your in your overall walk in this particular life and in the function and the work that you're aiming to ultimately do?
Do you want to talk about all the challenges? Like, of course,
How much time do you got?
there are so many challenges. I would say right now the biggest challenge, because my ultimate goal is to get out of direct patient care. Um, which is why, right, like I went back to school and why I'm continuing to go back to school. And that transition has been more challenging than I thought it would be, to go from like clinical care to like digital health. And for me, it in my brain, it's totally logical. Like I know this side of healthcare so well. So of course I know I can do this other side, but corporations don't necessarily see that. So I have found that to be quite interesting. But does that stop me from continuing? Absolutely not. I think that there's just so many opportunities, and I know that I get signs all of the time that I'm on the right path, right? One of my kiddos that I treat, the mom, so they have multiple kids, one with special needs, and the mom the other day, I've talked to her about AI, right? And I've talked to her about the Global AI Summit, and gave her a ticket to come just to pique her curiosity. And so I showed up a few weeks ago and she's like, Kate, I used AI and I created a whole business plan to start a gym for kids with special needs, the play places that you have in towns. And I was like, it like I made me want to cry, because like how amazing is that? And she was like, it did it in seconds. I'm like, I know. And so now, like let's go a little bit further. Now let's create some marketing material. Let's get your pitch deck together, because the only missing piece now is that funding, right? And you have a you have you're solving for something that hasn't been solved yet before, in our town at least. So create it, because obviously the gym could be used by anybody, any little kids, but it would be more inclusive, because she goes to these places in town and they're not set up or designed to be inclusive, right? They're a little bit wild and chaotic, and you could have a separate area where it is for individuals that might need stimming breaks, or might have low tone and like need some supportive structures in there, but it's still colorful and fun. And so I just think, there's always those opportunities, those little nuggets, like you can plant seeds. You just never know.
Planting seeds is definitely a common theme that I find with a lot of people who, not necessarily just in tech or AI, but just in general, in terms of anybody who is aiming to have a more exponential impact and effect on people, specifically on people. It's always about, well, this person said this to me way back when, and then it turns into this, whatever this idea, or whatever it is that they produce or they build. So I think to that point, I definitely want to commend you even on that, and in your engagement with families, with that particular mother in that instance where you poured into her and said, that you planted a seed and said, hey, this can be this, right? Here's the next potential step, the next potential phase, and I will support you in this, which I think is missing in a lot of situations. Oftentimes, whenever people are either going down a new pathway, trying something new, stepping out of their comfort zone, but just knowing that you have somebody there that's kind of riding with you, I think is a major boost. So I definitely
Yeah, I
appreciate
think so
you
too.
doing
And I also think it's also often missed in healthcare, right? Your interaction with a doctor is usually very quick. Like you don't have a rapport. And a lot of times people feel uncomfortable questioning medical providers because they feel like they have all of this knowledge. And so I can't ask a question because it's going to sound stupid. Um, at, it's a unique opportunity, because in physical therapy, I am very up and close and personal sometimes with people, and for an hour versus 15 minutes. And then I get to see them multiple times a week. So you really do get to learn somebody, right? And usually that injury is not just a one-time thing, right? Like an elderly person fell and they broke their femur. You learn that, oh, when I was 22, I played competitive tennis and I fused my ankle. And I was like, oh, you have not walked correct since your ankle was fused. But they've never made that connection. Or like, my back went out. Can you believe I was just lifting this small box? And I'm like, no, that was because of your career as a mechanic, right? Where you were like bending and lifting and bending and lifting. Like, usually, like, unless I'm talking gunshot wound or motor vehicle accident, usually our injuries are this lifetime of events. I find. And so there's just, you get to peel back those layers. And the more somebody trusts you, the more you're going to get out of them anyways. And so, yeah, it's just an opportunity to really bond with somebody and pour into them. Really, what they don't realize is that I'm just like absorbing and like and learning from them. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think it's definitely interesting and insightful for myself, and I would think for anybody who comes across this conversation to hear it from the perspective of healthcare, because I know usually, especially when we're talking about tech, AI is business focused. We'll get into education. There's a lot of marketing, promotional aspects, and you can create content and all those things. But going, I think, a little bit further into something that is definitely necessary, number one, but is ingrained in society, in the world. Like, you, at some point, you're going to need some type of treatment or help
Yeah.
when it comes to your health,
Yes.
whether it's a simple common cold or even, something more dire. So I think that that's extremely, I think, elevating in terms of the conversations, because we don't necessarily hear, I should say, I don't necessarily hear that side of it as much, right? Where we're talking about all these innovations. I mean, I've seen things with, like, robots doing surgery and that type of thing. But what you're more so talking about is at the core of the really the intent and purpose of serving people, at whatever level, right? And you're talking about it from the scope of working with young people, working with children and youth that need support and services, all the way up to the 104-year-old patient, which is amazing, right? And,
Yeah.
and to encapsulate that is I mean, I think it would take a long time to really draw that out and to kind of walk that forward. But I think it's great for us to get a glimpse into it. And I'm curious, with all of the works that you have going on, right? Your work at Mia, which is great. Shout out to Mia. Your current educational pathway, 2 masters, working on your doctorate. What's next?
What is next?
What's next for you? Yeah.
So I don't think that I'll be done with my PhD until 2027. And we are at a really peculiar time in history, with the election that's coming up and what's just going to take place, I believe, within this next year. And we're seeing the rapid advances of AI. Like, it is so insane to keep up with what's out, what's changed, what's been modified, the new computational power of OpenAI now, all of the things that are taking place. I really believe where I am needed the most, or where I can see that I will be needed the most, as somewhere advocating or helping to shape policy. Because there are really neat solutions coming out. For example, there are AI tools now that can predict breast cancer 5 years before we would be able to prior, right? That's so exciting. But if that data set is not inclusive, and what I mean by that is that people that are Asian or African American, like, we have, our breast tissue is more dense. And so often we have already been misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed in this area. So if that data set is not inclusive of all men too, because men also can get breast cancer. So if that data set is not inclusive, this, even though the solution is amazing, it could miss so many diagnoses. And so for me, it is very, very important that these solutions are safe for all of us and are representative for all of us. And that said, that we also have the opportunity to opt out if we want to. Like, I want to say, yes, I want to partake, or I want to use artificial intelligence within my healthcare system, or solutions, or I don't. And so I think that there will be a need for people and of color and for women in that space, just advocating that these solutions that are being developed that are amazing are also very inclusive and transparent, and then can be accountable, because our representatives, in Congress and Senate, don't understand the technology, and they might not even, a lot of us don't even understand, one, the human body, but the healthcare system, because it is convoluted. And so to be able to navigate those waters and make it explainable, and just to narrate that story, right? So that we can get actionable items, to protect us. I think I think that's where I'll be needed. But again, I am on this. I literally consider this a ride. It is one big adventure. And as you can see, I've done a slew of things while I've been here. And I plan to continue that. Like, what else can I achieve while I'm here? Why not tackle this? Why not go here? I just signed up to do a volunteer medical trip in the Democratic Republic, but I've never been, so I'm excited about that. And so yeah, I just like looked for those opportunities, like Black AI Think Tank and National Black AI Literacy Week. How can we educate more people? Well, for us, for our community, so that we are participating and or opting out of participation, because yes, it's great. There's all of these shiny tools, but not all of them are safe. And I want people to understand that it's not necessarily safe. Yeah.
Very true. And with that, like related to, well, first let me take a step back and shed some light and appreciation for your multi hyphenated nature, because I really lean into that, and I literally even have I created the multi hyph gang T-shirt because being multifaceted and not feeling as though you have to be put into a box or a category or caged in, and you can do multiple things and find a way to tie it all together so that it's driving toward kind of that same
Totally
North
makes sense
Star.
to me.
Is I mean, I think with that within itself is a very high level talent. I honestly do. Within all of the things, right, that you do individually anyway, right? So being able to bring it together is amazing. And it's a beautiful thing. And if you're not necessarily in that mind frame and scope, you might not understand it because it just
Like,
looks like
what are we
stuff
doing?
is.
Yeah, it sounds chaotic, but it's not.
I mean, it's organized chaos is
Yeah.
one way to describe it, I think, if we want to that way, right? So, but with that, I do want to lean a little bit more and tie it into with my last couple of questions, thinking about not necessarily just what you're currently doing, but looking into the future, right? Potential focus going forward. And related to your work as it pertains to AI and alignment with healthcare in particular, is there one thing that you wish more people understood about the correlation and the connection and relationship between those two and what we're looking at going into the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that there there's such a need for just general literacy, AI literacy. I don't even know if honestly people have the bandwidth to understand artificial intelligence and how it's impacting us and how it's going to impact us. I really don't. It is, it's everywhere now, and there's washing machines that have AI and refrigerators and all of those things. And I who knows when we'll get general intelligence and super intelligence, but what I know for sure, I can almost guarantee it, is that the way that we do work and organizational structures are going to drastically shift. And they already are, right? Like before AI has been deployed. Like this is the profound thing that I've learned from treating my patients, is that individuals that are 70, 80, that grew up in a time where they worked for a company for 40 years and they are proud of that work, for working at Ford, and they retired with a pension and a retirement, that's no longer the system that we live in. And so if you are not actively preparing yourself to maybe be laid off, right, at any moment in time, because there's been an organizational shift, then you're not equipping yourself for what's reality. Because I feel like I open up LinkedIn every day and this company's laid off 15, this company's laid off 10,000. There's not one career that I think is particularly safe. And so the more you invest in yourself, and sometimes it comes from that egocentric, like, what can this do for me? And so you pick a tool and you learn about it to see what it can do for you, make your social media better. Maybe you want a side hustle, but equip yourself for a future that doesn't look like for today. And that's hard to do because we don't know what it's going to look like. But I think the more skills you have, like prior you would want to put Microsoft Word on your resume and things like that. I think it's vital that you have some type of generative AI knowledge, just to be marketable and employable in this new world. Or take a venture out on yourself and bet on yourself. That's a tough road, but you know, I think if anyone's gonna fail, like at least you could say I did it all. I tried my best. Versus like it was up to somebody else that let you go and they have no relationship to you and they could care less that maybe you're pregnant and about to give birth and need health insurance, or maybe your husband was just diagnosed and you were relying on that health insurance for his cancer treatments. Our society is not designed to take care of us here in the US. I'm speaking US specifically because other countries do a better job. The more equipped you are to pivot at any moment in time, the better you'll be. And I think that's true just as we age. Like nobody prepares for what that process is like to age, and maybe you live in a house with multiple stairs. I'm going to guarantee you that's going to become a problem at some point in your life, right? And usually you don't face that challenge until it's a challenge, and then it's almost like too late. And now I can't get up to the stairs where my bathroom is, and now I've fallen. And so I'm saying a lot, but ultimately, prepare yourself to pivot and prepare yourself, because it gives you control. It feels better when you have control when there's chaos happening around you. And so the more educated you are, the more control you'll have in that situation when it feels like everything is not in control.
I concur completely with definitely preparation, self-education, reaching into, especially right now with a lot of the resources and tools being relatively low in cost for a lot of these things where we can start to tinker and, you can just engage. I definitely agree and align with you there. And also with the, professional aspect of it, yes, put, whatever resources and tools you're using on your resume. That's marketable for sure. So I appreciate you mentioning those things. As we get into our closing comments here, I do have one last big question to ask you, and that is, what legacy do you hope to leave behind related to technology and AI with the work that you're doing and the things that you're looking into accomplishing in the future?
Mm. The legacy that I want to leave behind. I would love for anybody that I've encountered, not just I have two children that I've adopted, not just my kiddos, but I hope that the legacy I leave behind is to be resilient, because life is hard. Like even if you're given a golden ticket, like it's still hard. You can look at celebrities that have all of the resources and all of the money, but they still struggle. They still have real life intrinsic things that they're struggling with. So life is hard. And so being resilient and being kind will lead you so much further than any amount of money, or any opportunity that you're given, if it's not like a good one for your soul. That's what I would like to leave behind. Like, be resilient and be a kind person. Like, at the end of the day, if you could be those two things, then you've made it. Because yeah, life is hard. Life is really hard. I will say that even if you're not in healthcare, you will access healthcare at some point in your life. I can almost guarantee it. And so healthcare and artificial intelligence, I think, is one of the most exciting spaces. And so I encourage you to explore it, because maybe you want to enter it and you don't even know it yet. And I think that it will be one of the fastest growing areas of AI, because there are so many opportunities for personalized healthcare, from fixing the operations, from all of the things, all of the elements of healthcare. So check that out. Also, finances, AI and finances. Learn one about finances, because if you don't know about your body and your health, and you don't know about finances, they're both going to cost you, both literally and figuratively. So I think those are the two things that aren't taught to us in school: finances and health. And I think that might be by design. And so if I could leave one gem with everybody, it would be, please learn about finances and please learn about your body and healthcare, the healthcare system, and how AI will impact both, because it's a very important. Outside of that, you can contact me.
And I definitely just, again, appreciate everything that you've shared, your time to do this interview. Just your voice is very needed. This is a very timely and necessary. So again, thank you so much for joining. Can you please share for the listeners, how do we get in contact with you? How can people follow up, see what you're doing? How can they reach out? Where can we go? And what are we looking for when we go to these platforms?
You can contact me on LinkedIn. It's probably like LinkedIn is my X or my Facebook or my Instagram. It's where I feel like I have friends, probably because they're in the same space that I'm in, and where I go most often. So Kate Marie Carter on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to connect with anybody and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you once again, Kate. It's been amazing hearing your story, getting your narrative, and yeah, we'll definitely have to do a follow up and just kind of follow what you're doing. Keep in contact, keep in communication, and I just appreciate you so much because this has been really energizing for me. Which it's funny because I know it's like not even 7 a.m. where you
It's
are,
not 6
and
a.m. now.
I'm like, where's she pulling this from? So again, thank you so much for taking the time. And with that, we will go ahead and close this one out. Thank you for everybody listening, and we look forward to having you back for the next edition of Narrative: The Road to 100 with Black AI Media. Peace.
Thank you.